Okay, welcome back. This is part 1B of the series that we started entitled on forms. Okay, and as you might know if you watched that one or you've watched the companion to this, which was on Babylon, if you watched that, you know that I'm doing two series that are running together but they both look at one side of it. This one's going to talk about forms and how we make decisions, which is really important to understand because that's how we both come to know God and be deceived. So we have to be able to understand that process to see what's going on. The Babylon one is about the forms that the enemies establish that quite honestly has deceived the world for 7,000 years. And the question is that form, is that control coming to an end? That's the question, which we're going to look at. But I intended to do this broadcast last week, but when I started writing down my whiteboard, I I wrote about, I was interested at the time about really how much power is there in free will. So I wrote some questions up on the board. Maybe we'll show you later about that. And I was going to talk on that, and then I got this clear leading that I'm not supposed to do that, that I'm supposed to continue with part B of part 1B. And so I put on the board today. If you watched that one, you saw this face like this, and that was looking, and there was this veil that separated the two, which we talked about. But it's looking at the infinite what is, okay? Which, quite honestly, in the ontological, which we talked about last week, what happens is that in the ontological sense, everything that exists came into existence as a result of some creator. We would call that creator God, and the ontological traces everything back. So when you look at the infinite what is, what's out there, however you see it or perceive it, it is God creating. Okay, and so and God being infinite, and in being in some ways formless, which is a strange concept because how can the infinite what is be formless? Because, see, we're so dependent on forms because we can only understand things by forms or categories. We can only, and we live in a physical world that reacts in forms, categories. You know, there's laws that govern the particulars of the creation or the what is. And and so for us to understand the infinite is just impossible, really. And as I have said in both broadcasts, this is what's different about Christianity. See, Christianity, most religions say, okay, they'll start out with the infinite what is. The gods or God or whatever that they put up here ontologically, they'll say created this or brought it into existence. As we talked about, some people believe what we're experiencing is a computer game that some infinite mind created, and we're just like in this computer game. That's an ontological approach too, which we talked about. But anyways, Um, all religions start with this ontological understanding that what is has a reason or a purpose, including us being here, okay? And in all religious systems, it presupposes or it acknowledges that we're here, okay? That the squirrel's running outside and everything's here. It exists. Uh, and it's trying to, as I've got here, look in and peer and understand the infinite or understand God, what the purpose of creation. Well, the difference between Christianity and these other systems, see, in those other systems, you have to come to some conclusion about God, about behavior, about the forms that you're going to operate on down here, from your own finite understanding of understanding the infinite. Well, this is why we have such discrepancies and divisions in all the religious ways of looking at things, or these ontological ways of looking at things, because really what you're supposing in these other systems, that somehow some person there who's finite actually explains the infinite. It comes, or maybe we come up with it collectively, and so now the infinite, what is that brought everything into existence, we've discovered and we've comprehended in the infinite's completeness. And of course, as soon as we go out and we explain our understanding or the form of our belief and how we categorize things, we come into competition with other people and other groups that say, well, you're wrong. We did the same thing, and this is the way. This is the truth. This is what you've got to do. And so we go to war over these kinds of things. Well, now I don't want to leave you with the impression that there is no truth or there is no ultimate reality. There is no infinite what is. What I'm trying to explain is our ability to understand this ontologically and everything is pretty unlikely. Christianity is different in this, because what Christianity teaches is that for God so loved the world he created that he sent his only begotten Son. So what he's saying is and if you get into Ephesians and some of the things of Hebrews, and you get into John, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God, and the Word, everything that came into existence through this Word. And then you get to the story where, they start out trying to comprehend this stuff after the garden, after they're kicked out of the garden, and these entities come down, try to tell them, who God is. And of course they go to war with each other over that, and there's a big mess. That's what we'll talk about in Babylon, series on Babylon. Well, what happens is when this happens, God gets kind of disgusted with them about just trusting him. And see, trust is real important, because trust basically says, I can't figure this out. I'm going to have to trust someone else to figure this out. I can't do it on my own. Now we make sometimes the mistakes of trusting the pastor or the person above us who's just as clueless as we are. But Christianity says this. It says that God, the infinite, became man, Jesus, the finite, so that in relationship with him, we could live by faith or trust. We don't have to figure it all out. All we have to do is trust Jesus relationally to lead us through the Holy Spirit in our individual lives down here. But we're not supposed to go forward and say, hey, I figured it out. You got to do what I'm telling you to do. No. You let Jesus, through the Holy Spirit, lead people. Now, with some caveats, I mean, if somebody comes up with an understanding that violates the law or the principles, like, say somebody comes up with the understanding, well, Jesus told me we should kill everybody who's 65. Well, Jesus came to fulfill the law, not get rid of the law. So is Jesus really going to tell somebody, hey, I'm going to give you power, you're going to be in charge of everything, and you get rid of this group of people? No, he's not going to do that. So there's some caveats on this. So this is what we're looking at. This is the complication here. We since we left the garden, we have to figure this out. As we said, our existence depends upon it. Imagine being in the garden before your eyes were open through the tree of knowledge through Adam and Eve, to the existence of categories in the sense that this is evil, this is good. Well, try to imagine being in that place where it doesn't matter really what you do apart from you're not supposed to eat from this tree. You know, there is no good and evil. You're not aware of it. Okay, you don't have to make a living. You don't have to toil in the garden and produce food. You don't need any shelter. Everything you need is provided. There's nothing hostile against you. The animals that are running around in the garden, they got teeth and everything, but they're not after you. They're all eating plants like you. You eat plants. And these plants just keep growing. I mean, it's very lush. You don't want for anything. But as soon as you, as finite, have your eyes open to the infinite, all of a sudden you are realizing my decisions that I have to make through my will has consequences. And those consequences, from my point of view, are either good or evil. Now, that doesn't mean I understand good or evil, because again, I'm not looking at it from the infinite. I'm looking at it from the finite. So if it harms me, and I brought this up in one of the episodes, maybe in the Babylon, if it harms me, it's evil. If it gives me pleasure, it's good. So see, we get locked into this understanding of good and evil in terms of categories that we decide based upon us, not the infinite. So somebody else making that in that same dilemma comes up with, well, I think, me taking your house is good because I want your house. And if it means I have to kill you, that's okay because that's good. I want the house. I mean, it's just that bizarre because, again, we're the infinite, the oneness of God is expressed in the Godhead that Jesus separates to bring God to us. so that we can trust Him. That oneness in the infinite, and because God is one, He's love. He's not like us. He's incomprehensible to us, apart from these entities coming down and trying to tell us who God is. Just like I might try to say, "Well, I figured it out. You guys are all going to hell, and my small group over here is the only saved people." That's how ridiculous this categorical form thinking is when we think we can comprehend the infinite. It's just, no. All we can do is trust Jesus. Love Jesus. That's all we can do. That's all that's required. And I know when I say that, it's going to make a lot of you upset. Well, if you make it that simple, people are going to do all crazy stuff. Let God sort it out. So you're going to impose your forms? How have you stopped sinning? Or are you still doing things based upon your understanding of good and evil? What's good for you? This is how bizarre this is. Okay. Now, so we got the infinite. We can see the problem here. But we're now out of the garden, and we have to make decisions. We got to choose one form or one category over another. And that's what Lucifer knows. That's what Satan knows. He's got us because he can deceive us through knowledge and through the lust of the flesh. He can deceive us into choosing a form that has the form of godliness, but denies the power, doesn't have the power of the relationship in Jesus Christ. So that's what's at stake here. Now, I wrote on the board here, and we're going to talk about this, because now we're going to get into the area of what I'm going to call what awareness is and consciousness is. Okay, now, awareness is not the same thing as consciousness. They're very closely related, but they're different. And I'm going to explain the difference to bring out this dilemma. Okay. A child in the womb has little awareness. Doesn't mean they don't have any awareness, but they have very little. And you can think of the awareness as a stage. Okay. Things walk across the stage, like in a play or whatever. And you see them walk across the thing. You might not know. You might see a guy carrying a box across the stage, not have any idea what's in the box or what the guy is doing or anything like that. But you're aware of somebody. Maybe like you, in that they're male or they're whatever, but they walk across the stage and they have a box, and you're aware because you've encountered the category of boxes before, so you have some limited understanding that boxes normally have something inside of them. So when you see this person walk across the stage, you have some awareness. Okay. A baby in the womb, very early after conception, has very little awareness. There's not a lot of things parading across the stage that they're aware of. So think of awareness that way. Now, as they progress to grow even in the womb, they start to have more awareness. More things are going across the stage. They start to develop a sense of sound and feeling and stuff. And so other things enter that stage. Again, categorically, they may not understand any of it or very little of it. Okay? other than, they probably don't even have too much of awareness that they're in the womb, okay, or in the mother's stomach. They're probably, or not stomach technically, but in this cavity here. Um, they're probably not even aware of that they're inside someone else, okay? But um, but they might be aware that when what something happens, maybe the mother eats something that doesn't agree with her, okay? They're not aware of her eating something that doesn't agree with her, but they feel the effects of it, maybe the burping or whatever. So they feel that comes across their stage, but they have no real understanding of it. They're just aware of it. And again, this goes back to this infinite. We're aware something exists, but but like that child in the womb, we're not aware of too much of the infinite. So we're babies. We're our awareness really exceeds our understanding. Okay, so now let's look at the term consciousness. Okay, consciousness can be looked at in the paradigm of the stage as a spotlight. So, on a stage in a production, you have the play going on, and then you've got somebody with a spotlight that's focusing light on certain things on the stage. So when they focus the light on the stage, what are they trying to do? They're trying to draw your conscious or your awareness to a specific part on the stage, making you conscious of, here's this big stage, but here's this little part on the stage. So the spotlight draws you to that spot out of the whole stage. Okay, now what an example of this, okay, is you can be in a room with lots of people everywhere. There's something going on, a presentation, whatever. Maybe it's church, or in it's this big sensory stimuli coming in through that stage. It's just intense. But the only thing your spotlight is on is you haven't eaten. so you're not conscious of anything other than, man, I hope this gets over soon so I can go get something to eat. You may even, in the midst of this service or what's going on, think, if I got up to go, maybe I can go down that hall to where the machines are and I can get something to eat. See how your awareness exceeds what you focus on, spotlight, and your consciousness. And so that and what affects that spotlight. This is the big issue. What affects that spotlight? Where you focus the spotlight. Well, I gave you an example. Physically, you need food. So that's going to affect how you look at the stage, what you focus on. And again, if it's all about you, which it is, in your natural self, it's all about you. What you're gonna focus on is what pleases you, and you're going to avoid what doesn't please you. So you're going to look at the world of people and these other observers out there, and you're going to focus on you. You may be aware that that's what you're doing. You may not. So what God does by giving you the law is giving you not something to live by, but make you aware or focus the spotlight on your nature, which is self-centered. He's, he knows if you're physically well, you don't have any. You're a pretty girl walking by is naturally your flesh is going to follow her. Okay, follow her. Okay, nothing wrong with that. God created you that way. He created you. You're hungry. There's nothing wrong with being hungry. There's nothing wrong with being thirsty. There's nothing wrong with looking for a house, someplace to live. See, and then you start to add into it the fact that you want to be connected to others, because I don't know if we talked about it last week, but part of being created in the image of God is you have these desires to be connected to people emotionally, physically, all of this kind of stuff. So that, because the Godhead is connected, they're in relationship. So part of the image of being created, part of the thing about being created in His image, you will seek connections. So you may see people having a good time and you want to be a part of it. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. Now, maybe you go and they won't let you into the group because they believe you should be sprinkled like a donut rather than poured on like something. This is how. So they may not let you in the group, and so now you feel bad and you don't want to do that again. You don't want to be hurt that way. I mean, these are all the things you go through that are affecting where you focus the spotlight. Okay. So to say you're in a world of hurt because a lot of this you can't control. Now you go and you get indoctrinated, or you become blind and lied to about what reality is about, that none of what I'm talking about is there. Okay, yeah, all God's concerned about is you keep these commandments. Did God create people just keep commandments? I don't think so, but that's what a lot of the church thinks. Okay, so say you get that into your thinking, and that becomes a part of how you direct your spotlight. We're all in a pretty bad place. And the enemy can come down and tell us things that we can't verify or check out about God and things. It's like we just went through this with the well, it's been a few years ago, but we went through this with the people at the top told us to take this vaccine and wear these masks, that because they wanted to direct our consciousness and spotlight so that they could control us. And now we're starting to find out, maybe that wasn't the best thing to do. Maybe their agenda, again because it's self-centered, was against our best interests. Okay, we run into that with people and institutions all the time because we trust them. I've had a couple of discussions with people. Well, who do you trust? I trust Jesus. Okay. Well, what if somebody lies to you and you take the vaccine and it's going to kill you or whatever? I'm just using that as a hypothetical. Guess what? It doesn't change. I trust Jesus. I mean, I've come to the point where I say, I can't figure it out. I'll trust Jesus. Well, what if you lose all your money? I'll trust Jesus. See, my spotlight is focused more and more with each day on Jesus, not how these various forms can manipulate me and control me. Because you know what? If Jesus doesn't want me to do something, he won't let me do something. There's a scripture that says he causes all things to work together for your good. You mean the vaccine? Yeah. If you took it and if you die for it, to die is to be with the Lord. I mean, again, we're trying to understand something we can't understand. All we can do is trust Jesus. And so as we start to get into this discussion of this dilemma we're in and how the things that affect where we turn the spotlight, as well as our nature, self-centered, our limitations, and the fact we might be impressed by somebody who doesn't seem to have our limitations. I'm not too tall. I can't dunk a basket, but when I watch somebody who's tall that has the skill float across the court and dunk a basket, that's impressive to me. Now, if they start to tell me about what I have to do to be saved, I'm not going. I trust Jesus. See, this is what it comes down to. This is how complicated eating from that tree and believing as finite observers we can comprehend the infinite. We can be, the temptation to Eve was what? For God knows in the day when you eat from that tree, you will be like him, knowing good and evil. Your finiteness will somehow disappear by knowledge, and that you can figure God out. And if you can figure him out like I did, then you can rise above him, because again, what their system is hierarchical, like a pyramid. They're at the top, you're at the bottom. To get anywhere in their religious systems, all these systems, you have to come up here. And you might get close, but you'll never be where I am because I'm at the top. Well, that much is true. You'll never be God. But guess what? God doesn't expect you to be him. He expects you to be you. He created you to be you. And see, what God's pyramid would look like is this, with him at the bottom sustaining everything above it. Not him at the top and us sustaining him. Because guess what? He doesn't need a thing from us. He created us to love him, love us unconditionally. He has no conditions on his love. It's what it says, the blood shed before the foundation of the world covered all sin. Well, what does that mean? All sin. Now, does that mean everybody wants to accept that? No. Does it mean everybody accesses that by trusting Jesus? No. But God's not setting up there saying, you got to come up to the top of the pyramid by me. He's saying, I already did it. You need to do this for other people. Well, that's what God's about. With that, we're going to conclude this one. I would remind you to go and look at the Babylon one if you'd like, and if you have any comments or questions, you can put them in the below. Otherwise, until we'll be probably getting another one out this week yet. So until then, shalom, God be with you, and trust Jesus.